everybody. Welcome to Caffeinated and Curious. The first episode is happening. We're so excited. Today's topic is homeschooling, which I know little to nothing about. I was public school, private school, flip-flopping back and forth my entire education. I've had a few friends that have been homeschooled. And that's pretty much it. That's my only exposure to homeschooling besides talking with you. So I know that you weren't homeschooled growing up, not really. So this was like a new thing for you to do too. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that.
Here we go. If you want to learn about homeschooling, if you homeschool, or if you kind of like were interested or curious about it, we are Caffeinated and Curious, and we're going to start the conversation now.
We're caffeinated.
We're caffeinated. I'm definitely caffeinated. So let's dig into this sabroso conversation about homeschooling. Okay, no, I was not homeschooled. I didn't know anything about homeschool. I didn't even know it existed when I was in school, but I loved learning. I love school.
Same.
I love everything about school. I love Sunday school. Like, I loved going to Sunday school and trying to get all the answers right there too, you know? Like, I just love
it. Was an opportunity to display knowledge.
All of it. I was like, give it to me. I was like a sponge. But my mom loved education. And so at home, at least for me, because I think I was probably the only one she was home for, like she wasn't working when I was going to preschool. So she did a lot of learning things at home. She taught me, writing, colors, reading, things like that. So by the time I got to pre-K, I knew like a lot of things already. I was pretty ahead. And so I think that when I started homeschooling the boys, I felt like I thought of my mother. I was like, Mom used to like teach me all this stuff, and she was always overly excited about like, you did that, you read that, you knew that answer. So I was excited when I started doing it with the boys. And I guess it just started to all come back like, oh my gosh, you know what? My mom kind of homeschooled, But yeah, it was something that when I started having kids and I realized that they needed to go to school, the question, they need to get educated.
To do something.
They're supposed to learn. And so when that was the case, we were living in, it wasn't a suburban town or anything like that, but it wasn't city either. So there were just crowded public schools. And I still loved education, and I wanted my kids to learn everything. So I did the same thing at home. I would say, okay, like for my firstborn, this is how you spell your name, this is how you write it. So by the time he was 2, he knew how to write his name. Like I really wanted them to learn so bad. Like everything you can learn, just learn it. And we would do all the learning videos, things like that.
But so you're like already doing this like homeschooling thing, but it wasn't like, from what I remember you telling me, it wasn't really on your radar for like a thing until a decent amount of time later, like 2 or 3 years later or something like that.
Well, I was working.
Okay.
So my job was really demanding.
Sure.
And
you're invested there,
And I was like there. I stayed home when I had them. And for the year or 2 when there were babies, I was with the first 2. We started to say, well, they need to go to school. And I was going back to work. I went back to work already at that point. And so I said, well, I work, so we're going to have to put them in a private school. And so I was we're going to pay for a private school. That didn't quite work out because we couldn't get anybody to take them to school and pick them up. So, and we moved, and now we lived further away from the city where I worked, and it was closer to my husband's job. So we had to find something close. My husband was just, well, you know what? We moved to this place that has a better school system. That's one of the reasons why we moved. That's a funny story. Yeah. We're going to have to share.
Yeah, you have to tell it. I was trying to.
Oh my gosh.
I remember that was one of the first stories you told me about moving here to.
Yes.
I'm just like, we moved here for the schools and now we don't send them.
That's a funny story. I don't even think I shared that on Simply Iris, but because Shane was on that. But we moved to the town for the school system. It was the top schools in New Jersey. And we were like, they're going to go to these schools. It's public schools, so we don't have to pay for them. And then we said, well, I can't stay home. I really want to work. And it just became an issue that we weren't quite sure how we were going to work that out.
Yeah.
But they were in a preschool at that point, and it was hard to drop them off and leave them there from, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. That was rough. And I just didn't want them to have that long term, and so I think at that time I started to think about, I don't think I want to work anymore. I think I want to be home with the kids, which is crazy.
Because from what I remember you telling me about like who you were as a young adult, like in your 20s, you're all about working.
Yes.
You're all about doing your thing, and like you're really invested and really loved the jobs that you had.
Yep.
And so that's like a really big transition and change.
Yeah.
There were, if I remember correctly, there were like 2 people that you met that gave you kind of like this entrance into like what homeschooling was like. Who were they?
These 2 ladies, they were young. They late 20s maybe. So younger than me. I started having kids late in life. But I met them. They had a bunch of kids. If they watch this, they're gonna laugh because they know exactly who they are. But we met at a church VBS, and so I'm like, "How do you do it?" I have my 2, and I'm like, going crazy. And so,
then they tell you they're homeschooling, and you're like, "How do you even do that?"
What? No. So you're young, you have a bunch of kids, and you live on Little House on the Prairie because. You homeschool?
That was your concept. Yeah, that's really funny.
No. But they were like, they came from places I grew up going to. I was like, they're Latina. And I was like, why? Why do you do this? Like, I'm glad you said about like working and then stop working and make this decision and just changing life that way, because part of the story, right, as Latinas is that our families came here for a better opportunity. At least that's the idea is we come here for a better
Pause.
Yeah, we're recording. What do you need?
I just want someone to play with board.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that's life and homeschooling. And
you were talking about our families coming together.
Yes, how interesting that you bring that up, because that's the plan. The plan is you come to this, my family, my parents came to this country in the 70s. They were like, get a better job. They came from Puerto Rico, and it was like, work. We're going to come here for work. And then for us kids, it was like, you're going to go to school. Same idea, right? Public school is the best opportunity, compared to what they had. And probably they couldn't even finish school fully, right? Yeah. So it's just that different perspective. So they thought public school definitely, and then work. And public school will give you that opportunity to work. So I remember working being the goal. So I had a really good job. I worked in finance, and I had a really good job. And the last job I had, my boss was awesome. Love him so much. And he gave me such opportunities to just manage and lead. And
I was dying when you were telling me about this, because you were like, he had set up his own thing that he was doing, and he had brought you over with him and like some other people, and you were like office manager, COO, like all the things essentially, like setting up the company. And I don't know if he was saying like business cards or something, you were trying to make them, and he was like, Iris, just make yourself the CEO. I don't care. And I was like, what is this?
He did. So funny. Oops, something fell.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, but yeah, it is. It's funny. He was just wonderful. It was a great opportunity to learn. And I felt like, hey, maybe I could do this, like become a portfolio manager or something like that. And when I stopped working, that was the last job. And that was what I left to then say, I want to give all my time, invest my time to the kids. And that was a big deal, because it meant so many things, right? It meant being looked at as, what are you going to do all day? It meant you're leaving your job, and, you made good money and you loved your work. What's your purpose now? Who are you now? So going back to meeting these women, these young women, those were my thoughts. My thoughts were, what do you do? How do you do, what do you mean homeschool, you know? And so I needed to see for myself. So I asked one of them, I said, can I go visit you? She's like, yeah, why don't you come over and see how I do it? And so this is the one with the 5 kids. I mean, thankfully, because I was real interested in how that was done. I was like, I don't know how you do it.
That sounds really hard, honestly.
Amazing.
I mean, I've never been a teacher like in a full-on like classroom setting, but I do have like some teaching experience in general, and I'm just like managing a classroom is rough. So, or not rough, but it's hard. You have to. It's like a skill that you learn,
right?
And having such a wide age range of students to take care of, is like that's kind of daunting.
Oh, you're already recording? How many times does Iris?
Always recording.
Okay, what are pasteles? Pasteles are a traditional Puerto Rican dish served best by themselves, but you know, you can have it with rice. Totally fine. Going to Puerto Rico, visiting my grandparents meant having pasteles. Now, granted, pasteles are really savory and they're a meal in and of themselves. But for my grandparents, it was an appetizer. You had 2 because they come in pairs, a junta. And so they would give you the 2. They would serve you 2 pasteles before the full meal, which can include pork chops, rice, salad, potatoes, plátanos, all that stuff after. But we enjoy them just by themselves. So Pasteles Reyes was born out of that, out of my grandparents' recipe, out of visiting them in Puerto Rico and helping them make pasteles as well, learning how to make them now, and then now having my own children make pasteles just like my grandparents used to do. It's about 4 generations of recipe, and the flavor is out of this world. First of all, I've changed it a little bit so that it's healthier. I use gluten-free organic ingredients. I make the freshest sofrito, and if you need to know what that is, go on the website and you'll figure that one out, but it's herbs and spices. And so what you end up with is a firm but not too hard, very soft and savory pastel with pork. You can have it with chicken, I serve it that way too, or with queso frito, which is fried cheese filling, or you can have it vegan. But either way, what you're gonna have is a pastel, is a masa full of flavor, ingredients like sofrito, achote, which is annatto seed oil, and adobo, which is a combination of oregano, turmeric, salt, pepper, and garlic powder. It's amazing. You're gonna love it, and it freezes for up to a year, so you have meals for days for the whole family. Click on the link below. You're not gonna want to miss it.
So you're heading to your friend's house that has 5 kids.
Yes. So I go to her house and she shows me a schoolroom, and she's got all these books. Her youngest was still not school age yet. So, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, like, how do you organize everything? You know, who does what? Mm-hmm. This is just incredible. But it was really cool at the same time because all of her kids were super respectful kids. Like, hi, they called me Miss Iris. And hi, Miss Iris. You know, I'm so-and-so. And I'm like, wow, okay. And he was like, I don't know how old, the oldest boy was 9 or something at the time. And he was just, I'm so-and-so. And I'm like, wow, well, nice to meet you. You know, and their daughters came, would you like some water? And they were just so cool. And we became friends after that. And I was curious. So I, you know, ordered a curriculum and I said, well, my son is going to be 5. He would be going into kindergarten next year. Mm-hmm. Why don't I just get a kindergarten curriculum based on like some of the information she gave me? And I did some research. And by the way, one of the research books that I looked at was Kathy Duffy's 101 top homeschool curriculums. I think it's 102 now because she changes it, or it's changed every few years. But back then it was 101 top homeschool curriculums. It gave me an assessment. What is my style of teaching and what is the child's style of learning? Mm-hmm. So I never thought about homeschooling in these ways. I was just like, oh, okay, I have a choice. What they're going to learn, how they're going to learn. Yeah. I can also make it so that they're learning according to the style and way that they learn. And I can teach it the way I teach. So it was this correlation, this, way of teaching that was different from what I experienced in public school, but it was also not anything I expected from homeschooling either. Homeschooling just sounded weird. So it was very interesting. I started reading, immersed myself in reading and researching all about homeschooling. And I found all this information about it online, and I found the curriculum that I thought fit us best.
Right.
So my oldest is super smart. He's bright. Anything you give him, he'll absorb and can give it back to you exactly the way you gave it to him in one shot. He's pretty bright. So it was a really nice, smooth transition into this world. And so in the beginning, so I had ordered the curriculum. I started doing it and it was so much fun. I loved it. I was like, wow, there's so many books. There's so much. And this was just kindergarten. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then that January, we would have had to register him for school. We want to see it through and see if this is the decision. Go to this meeting for the school.
Yeah.
The first thing we're told is, you're going to definitely want to register now. There's only 50 kids for each of the classes. There's only 2 classes for this entire area, this district.
Kindergarten is not a required grade for children in New Jersey. I don't know if it's the whole country,
you don't even have to.
You could just send them to first grade.
Yes,
if you
can.
to.
But they were very much like,
you
got to put them in now.
Right.
And I thought, okay. And then I said, okay, what do I need to do? And they gave me a packet. It was like 30 pages. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And so I sit down and I guess I have high hopes because this is a top school.
Yeah.
Very high school, whatever. And so I opened the packet and half of it was about media release for my child's image on all media release. And I'm like, okay. The other half was his entire medical history. All the vaccinations, conditions, allergies, blah, 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 every single thing. And I'm like, that's it? And I said, oh, wait. I said, you know what? There's nothing about what they're going to teach him. So I go back to the woman at the desk, the front desk, and I said, excuse me, my son, I'm going to register him for kindergarten. I'd like to know what he's going to learn. And she looked at me, she goes, oh, we won't know that till August. And I go, I'm sorry, that's a month before school starts. She goes, yes, that's when we hire the teachers. And I'm like, I'm going to know what I
feel like that's not true.
It didn't make sense. I didn't know, but it didn't make sense to me. And I thought, I won't know until he's going to go in what he's going to learn. Yeah. And
because curriculum, no matter the teacher, is usually, it's usually set before.
Wouldn't it be the same?
What do I know? But I'm not a teacher. I'm not in the public school system.
Now, by this time, I had gone online to the education, department of New Jersey, and I tried to look. Yeah, I know. Unannounced, I would look into it, and I'd be like, "What are they learning in kindergarten in the state of New Jersey?" So I already knew most of the things, and I was unimpressed. A lot of the stuff 10 years ago was psychological. They wanted to know how he was feeling every day. They were going to teach in kindergarten about emotional things and psychological things and what do they think about this thing. And I thought, I already told myself, do I want my child at 5 years old to go to school and talk about his feelings and emotions? No. Teach him how to read, teach him how to write, teach them the current latest math and, curriculum that you've got, right? You went to school. This is your area of expertise. The emotional, psychological, I'll take care of that. We are his parents. At home, we will help him
I feel like that's unique, though, because I don't know. Well, so this is me coming from a house, I feel like my household was unique, too, because my dad's a social worker. So, that is part of our growing up as well, leaving room for emotions and how we're feeling. But I feel like I didn't go to school with a lot of kids, at least the emotions thing. Maybe like the values and stuff. Yes. Like their parent, like that's how you live your life. But I don't know about the emotions thing. I don't know. I'd be interested to ask my friends about that. Cause I don't know. I just feel like it was like, depending on which school I was in, I guess it depended.
That's kind of funny.
Sometimes it was like, I don't care how you feel if we're doing it.
You got to do it.
You're the kid, go along.
Right?
Other times it was different, but
I have spoken to some teacher friends, and they do say that things have shifted, where now it's more about how does the kid feel about doing this thing, and then you kind of have to cater to their feelings
for sure
about it.
now. Yeah, that's more
And
popular
I'm just,
now.
that's what it evolved to. And I'm like, you know, back then I thought, you're getting into my kid's head. Just don't get into my kid's head. Yeah. You know, like, he doesn't have to talk about that at school. That's what I'm here for.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I could understand where probably that's a need in our community. But if I'm telling you that I'm taking care of it, like...
Yeah, then that's fine.
But that was the educational system in the state. So it was something that was going to be incorporated regardless of how I felt.
Yeah.
Either way, they couldn't give me the information as to what they were going to learn in school. So I pretty much put the packet down. I said, you know what? My husband looked at me. He was like, no, we've made our decision. We're homeschooling. And I was like, that's it. We're out of here. And
Shane's on board.
Shane's on board. We're doing it. And so we headed home. As I'm leaving the building, in the parking lot, the woman comes out, the woman at the desk, follows me to the parking lot and says, I'm sorry, you know, was there something wrong? Like, is everything okay? You really need to register your child now. And I was like, I looked at her and I said, yes, but I called you 2 weeks ago. And I did. I called you 2 weeks ago and I asked you the same question. What is my child going to learn in kindergarten at this school? And today you told me the same thing. You just don't know. And she says, no, because I said, I know you told me that already. She goes, but you can talk to the nurse. That's who you would see next. And I said, I was going to talk to the nurse about what my son is going to learn in school. No, we've made our decision. We're good. Thank you. And she says, well, the principal was sitting right next to me if you wanted to speak to her. And I looked at her and I said, you're telling me that I went up to you to ask you this question and she was right there next to you and she couldn't answer the question of what my child is going to learn? No, we're good. We said, thank you so much. You didn't have to come out. We're good. We've made a decision. And that was it. But it was very surprising. I've talked to people. I've told them that story and teachers, administrators, and they said that's just so odd. It was such an
very odd.
Yeah, experience. So I was like, I don't know, but that's just what we went through. And it started, you know, it catapulted our time of like, we're doing this. And I just continued the curriculum, you know, and 10 years later, here we are. Yeah.
Okay. So you're 10 years in. What were because I can only imagine like you have 3 sons that are the first 2 are 2 years apart.
Because I started with 2 and I had to have one more.
Well, yeah. And there's like a 5-year gap between
almost
the second and third. Okay. So that's pretty wide range of like needs and like levels, differences and all that. So the first couple years though, it's just the 2 boys.
Right.
So what was that like for you? Because I feel like I would be like, oh, I'm so excited. I made this decision. This is great. And then you get into it and you're like, what did I do? What did I do? That's how I think I would feel that way. I can maybe, I don't know.
It's time for coffee. Absolutely. At the beginning, you know, it was just because, you know, my second was like 2. So he wasn't quite. So it was just for the first year, maybe second. At 4, I started kind of dabbling into, I thought, well, why doesn't he just do kindergarten at 4? Doesn't matter. So by second year, I have 2 that I'm doing. They're sharing curriculum, so we were using the same thing. Ben was a completely different learner.
Yeah, he's very different.
Totally different. So we connected with these organizations. NJHSA it's a little religious. So we were like, okay, but they had great activities like a bowling league. Later on we realized that they do these great graduations. I didn't even think about that when they were, kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so it was a good resource. Then there were these other things that I could connect to, moms groups in the area. There were homeschooling groups that were doing traveling. They were doing trips. So we were able to go to, Great Wolf Lodge or some other theme park for a lot less because they were getting group rates and things like that. So it opened up this other community of people where children are learning and flourishing, where parents are learning right alongside their children, which is something I realized happens. And they were enjoying this experience and they had ups and downs, and we could sit and have coffee or a margarita at 1 PM when needed, because it was let's just have breathe time. Sometimes sometimes it was like that, and it was just comforting. You're going through it, what this is like. And a lot of them were ahead of me, and I thought, oh my gosh, what do I have to look forward to now? That was super helpful. Yes, I felt like an oddball. I still feel like an oddball. A lot of the homeschool community in this area did not look like me. And so I thought it was so interesting that I met these women. I thought it was so interesting that I met these Latina women from the inner city, my same story, very similar stories. And, realizing, what? They've been doing this before me. And they were doing it here in this area where you don't see a lot of people like us doing it. Yeah. So that started a whole nother journey about what homeschool life looks like for us, and the opportunities that we have as immigrants into this country that are going public school only. And then when COVID happens, or when the school system is kind of teetering, right? And as to whether they're a quality education, there are options. You can do it yourself, or you can find help to do it yourself. And so it became a whole nother thing. It became like, a movement.
Right, because there's a lot of variety. Because I know, I think I had a friend in high school who was homeschooled that I met at youth group, and they would do co-ops kind of things. So they would one mom would take one subject, and 5 kids would go to her house on Mondays for that subject. And then they'd go to a different mom for a different subject. So then the work was spread around a little bit. So it was less stressful for the mom that was teaching. I think it was almost all moms. And then, the kids got a little bit of variety and community that way. So there's just a lot of freedom in it. It's all that I'm trying to really get at. You can do it all, one subject is on you for all of your kids, or
there were co-ops too throughout the years. I tried a few of them. I didn't stick to any of them. I would do 1 year, I tried one thing. Another year I tried classical conversations. Another year there was a group that was getting together at a church, and they were renting it out once a week. And I guess for me, what didn't work for me, and that's just me, is that I had to teach as one of the parents who was going. And so I was like, I already teach my kids. And the hope was to not have to teach this one day. And they learn other subjects that they wouldn't have learned at home with me. But I did find a lot of other things. I found a science center close to 5 minutes from my house. Actually, it's 10. I always get that wrong. We're always late. But sorry. But, it's... what is it called? North Jersey Homeschool Science Center, NJH Science Center, SC. And so teaching all science 5 days a week. It's amazing, this woman. So I could plot them into whatever class was for their age, for the subject I wanted them to learn that year. She has increments of 8 weeks, so it wasn't too much.
Right.
And that's one thing I learned throughout the years. I wanted to be home with my kids. I wanted to, as the time went on, after getting over a few humps. So you talked about the first 2 years. That was definitely a hump. Trying to figure out identity. Who am I? Trying to figure out, how do I know I'm doing a good job? That one is still something I struggle with today. 10 years later, I'm still struggling with, are we doing okay? Because they're really, what I've gotten better at in learning through this experience is that I can be confident that I can say, they're doing okay. Sure, I've been able to see other kids, public school, private school, homeschool, and kind of have some measure of, okay, my son is this age. What are kids his age like? What have they learned? And I've asked teachers, I've asked friends who are principals and things like that. So I've tried to kind of stay informed of what's going on outside of the house. That's important. Like, just don't isolate. Like, go out there and there's resources. And I know I can be confident today to go, they're doing really well. I can, it's a comparison is a beast, but you become confident in you when you have the opportunity to assess, when you can have these resources, and then for yourself, just trust yourself. Trust yourself that as a parent, you know what is best for your child. As a parent, you're going to look out for them better than anyone else can, right? Like, I think we have to get that back, redeem it for parents. Like, you know what's best for them. You can go into that office at the school, at a public school, because I am not at all like advocating against public school systems. We need them. We need public school systems. I want them to get better, and really provide. What if I couldn't homeschool anymore?
Right. Like, what if you needed both of your incomes in order to make stuff work, and there's no other option besides that? Yeah.
Because that's another thing. A lot of homeschool families are in one income.
Right.
Or they're both entrepreneurs. It's really tough, to manage. But yes, we need the public school system. But if they can really, truly provide something that's equal to homeschooling in value, in how much they're learning and changing, being dynamic and going, well, we can teach this and expand more on what is being learned versus taken away. Now you're giving something worth going there for. And the comparisons and seeing homeschooling as better or worse, you know what, we can bridge that gap and go, if we need it, public school system is there. We pay our taxes for it here in New Jersey, right? We, support those who are in the Board of Education. We support leaders who care about our children and their education. So we're all in this together. As a homeschooler, I'm not against it. As a homeschooler, I'm still part of the community going, I care about our children. I want what's best for them. We just happen to be able to do this. We just happen to be able to have this option, and we chose it, and it's been going well for us. And so I'm thankful for that. But
I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like, I don't know where the stigma came from in my head, so apologies to... But I feel like there is this, like, opinion about, like, homeschooling that, like, they hate public schools. That they really dislike them, and they're just so terrible. Like, I can't have my child in them or something like that. I don't know. That can't be true for all homeschoolers. It's clearly not true for you. But I just, like, there's something to be said for, like, we don't hate them.
No, we don't hate them. Caffeinated and Curious does not hate the public. Iris does not hate them. No, I'm not against. I'm for them. We need them. My parents needed public school system.
Right?
Your family needed. They need them to be good. They need good teachers. They need good leaders, administrators, and things like that. I can't stress that enough. Just like you need good homeschool families as well. Make sure that we are, providing well for our children, because there's a stigma the other way too. Homeschoolers are weird. They're isolated. They, they are not learning everything they're supposed to learn. But that brings us to the whole conversation about education, period. What is it? What is important about the education of our children? What has it become? Has it become just a preparation for factory work or for cookie cutter work at an office building? Has it become just, I'm just preparing you for everybody to be the same and everybody go the same route? Or are we allowing children and families to work together with educators and administrators and teachers and go, we want to learn as much as possible in our time of learning at this age when we can't work or we can't, take care of ourselves, right? But we want to learn and learn well and love learning. And that brings me to another point I wanted to make is that it wasn't about academics only. The first 2 years immersed from, I had every minute of the day scheduled. We're going to do this. 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 And that was because of my training in public school. And in public school, it's like fill in every hour with something. Yeah. And then parents after school fill in every hour with something. And we are just trained to keep working, keep doing, keep studying, keep going. And so what I learned pretty quickly, so 2+ years into the journey, is that academics was not the priority. It was not the most important part.
Well, that matches up with what you said before about you wanted school to take care of academics, but you wanted to take care of that psychological, social, emotional kind of raising that you're is extremely important to raising a child. So that it makes sense that you would come back and circle around to that.
Totally. But doesn't that beg the question, what are kids doing in school for 6 hours a day? We have to think about what is education? What do we want from it? When I'm home with them, I think about public school a lot. I went to public school and I go, and I have friends who are in public school and I go, what are they doing for 6 hours with all these other kids around? You cannot tell me that for every minute of that day, you are learning something. No. I don't remember half the stuff I learned in elementary. The most important things are those things that are life skills, discipline. How do I discipline myself to get my work done? How do I be a responsible person and make sure that I get my homework done and bring it the next day? Don't forget my books. These are things you learn. How to tie my shoes, how to make sure I have a raincoat when it's raining or have a hat if it's cold, or how do I make sure that I have, the right subject for that class, the book for that class, the notebook, the supplies. All these things are, in my mind, I'm like, those are life skills. You make sure you're responsible, you're disciplined, right? You get up at a certain time and have to be there at a certain time. By middle school, you're going to different classes, you're learning how to do that, right? So at home, I thought, all right, well, they're not going to be learning those things in those ways, but they're going to definitely learn life skills. Yeah. So my children know how to cook and clean and do laundry at a very young age, and then keep that a routine, and then character building was huge. What kind of man do I want you to be? What kind of person do I want you to be in this community? And then discipline. Do you care about what you're doing? Why is that important? That's why I say defining education is important. Yeah. If it's important to you, then you're going to discipline yourself, right? To say, I'm going to make time for this, or we can't make time, but we're going to make space and make time and be responsible and schedule ourselves and have that outlook on it. It's important. So I have to do it. When do I do it? For how long? And for us, we are a family of faith. We love the Lord. We've grown in our faith throughout the years. We care about reading the Bible and prayer, spending time with God, getting to know Him better, growing closer to Him. We care about our children knowing that as well. That's not going to be taught in public school. I know that. But that was important to us. So discipleship is an important thing for us as well. Yeah. So all these things, and then the utmost, lesson I learned was that time together. Time together was so important. It was so valuable. I gotten to see every stage of my children's life. I haven't had to miss anything. And I was missing it in the beginning. Yeah. Work, Yeah. And that's fine. I could have done that and that would have been fine. But for some reason, I felt brokenhearted about it and I couldn't do it anymore. But kudos to men and women who can work and have kids. Wow. Like, oh my goodness. You're not sleeping. You're taking care of these human beings and then you're going to work. Like, I just think that there's such amazing families out there doing that hard work of jobs.
Yeah.
Businesses.
I mean, I think if you have like, if that's something that you can do, that's amazing. If you have help doing that, that's also like an avenue people use to like make that happen. And there's a lot of different ways to like parent that create great children and adults and turn them into wonderful contributors to society.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And I think that's another question to ask ourselves. Not just what is education and what's important about it, is what is the goal for our families? What's the goal for our children? There were a few things, or a couple of things I should say, that I did not want to end without mentioning. Yeah. And it's to trust yourself as if you choose to homeschool, trust yourself. Another thing is that routines, you can love them or hate them, but they work, you know, but you can also be unstructured with them. It doesn't have to be structured. Just because, you know, you made a routine doesn't mean that it has to be super strict. You know, you can be unfiltered. You can be, you know, out of sync. You can do things in the morning or night or day, whatever. You can skip days and it still be a routine. The point is that your child knows what to expect. Children, many children, most of mine really enjoy knowing what's going to happen next. Otherwise, they're like, either I lose them, they run away, or they're just like, what are we doing? Okay. So I think routines are helpful and useful. Just use them the way you want, like anything else. So yes, trust yourself, trust the process. Routines are good and useful. Another thing is that know that you will not be able to do it all. Like I cannot do it all. And I will never be able to do it all. Things are going to be left unfinished. In other words, my child is going to graduate from high school not knowing everything. I would not have covered every single subject. But the truth is, neither do they do that anywhere else. Public school, private school, no other institution or other way of doing education is going to possibly teach every single thing. But you're going to trust yourself and you're going to do fine. You're the child's parent. Like I said before, you're their parent. You know what's best. You know them best. And you're going to know exactly when they're struggling with something or when they're like getting something really well. So those are some things. And I think the last one is that the point is to create or cultivate in your children and in your whole family life, even in yourself, cultivate a love of learning. As parents and as teachers, I think teachers need to know that as well, is that you're learning as you go too. We never stop learning. We're always students. I used to always use the term forever student. I'm a forever student, you know? And so the love of learning and knowing how to find resources, how to get answers, how to learn, where I can learn. I think that's really one of the best goals, you know? One of the things that I am truly at this point of the journey, and I still have years to go. Yeah. I'm saying that and I need another cup of coffee.
Gotta let that sink in.
I have a long way to go still. I can't believe it. I'm 10 years in and I think I still have like 10 more years to go, right? But with that said, time. Time has been my biggest enemy and my greatest gift. Time spent with my children up to this point has been invaluable. It's the most amazing thing I didn't know I wanted. It's also been the biggest struggle because I want time for me. I want time to do what I want. I want to do certain things with my time. I want the kids to do certain things with their time. And they're changing. They're becoming their own, you know, young adults, you know, and they've been people all along, but now they're becoming different people than what they were before when they needed me for everything. And some of those personalities are not ones that I expected or nurtured or wanted them to be. And I'm sure many parents listening or people
can identify.
Period. You know, it's just not what you expected. But be okay with change, because I've changed a lot in 10 years too. You know, and often I say, these poor kids, I mean, granted, I'm the only girl in the house. It's all boys, right? My husband and the boys. So they have to put up with a lot just with that. But they also have to put up with Iris. And Iris is complex and has a lot of, you know, it's like there's a lot to me. And for them to have to deal with me every day as well. So we got to see it both ways, you know. But it has been beautiful, truly, to just spend time with those 3 people that I call my sons, you know? And I've learned, teachers, you're a teacher as well. You teach so well. I think you're an incredible teacher. And I'm sure you know this. But when you go into a teaching situation, you come out learning more.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, I'm a better person. I'm a better friend. I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. I'm a better human being, because I've been able to spend time with those 3 people. And wow, the places they will go. I mean, not to quote Dr. Seuss or anything, but as a, you know, an educator, it's just, it's true. I can just see it. They're just going to do so many incredible things, because they've been such a huge impact in my life. People often tell me, oh, they should give you so much praise. You know, at the end of this journey, they should like lift you up. And I'm like, no, I give them a lot of credit, and I praise them highly for what they've accomplished and what they've done. You know, besides putting up with me, they've also endured a lot. It's a lot. You know, growing up, it's a lot. And I've grown up too in this stage of my life, and it's been a lot.
Sure.
It's been a lot. So that's why I created a podcast, so I talk about all the things. Not completely, but right? We just learned so much. 10 years, that's a lot.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So time is the biggest gift. That's the biggest gift out of all of this.
Amazing.
But with that said, if anyone's interested in homeschooling, if you've been curious about it, if you want to learn more about it, we're going to have links on the description part of this page, and you can just go into them and just start learning about it and looking at it. Every state in the United States has different homeschool laws.
Yeah, so I didn't know that till you told me that.
So look into those as well. I would start there. What are the homeschool laws in your state? But I will try to share as much, you know, of the experience that I've had. This was just part of it. I mean, I told Anna before that to talk about 10 years in a short period of time is really hard. So there was a lot more to the conversation, but at least, you know, I think I gave a lot of the important parts, a lot of what I wanted to say in this episode. So I hope it was helpful to you. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, there'll be links for you to look into it yourself. And we'll be talking about this again, because we have stories for days about homeschooling in this house.
Yeah, definitely. So fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're wrapping up at this point.
Yes.
Our next couple episodes are going to be so fun. We're going to have your friend Xiomara on.
Xiomara's going to be on.
We're going to have our friend Mariah on.
Yes.
Talking.
Mariah's going to be here.
Yes, she'll be here.
Can't wait.
So
Talk about curly hair girl.
Yes, she has like 4C hair. It's so beautiful.
Yes, I can't wait for you all to meet her.
For those of you, there is a curl typing system. It's a whole thing. Curly girls will know about it. But yeah, so we're so looking forward to doing that and getting to have more conversation with our friends and
having more coffee.
Having more coffee. Well, do you tell them now that I don't drink coffee? We're start that right there.
Let's clear the air.
Yeah.
Let's clear the air.
Yeah.
We're not hating on anyone, but Anna does not drink coffee.
I know.
And I have several friends who don't drink coffee, and we love them so much. But that's why, you know, that's why we say we're tea friendly. We're matcha friendly.
It has caffeine.
We're, chai friendly.
Yeah.
It
has caffeine.
Decaf friendly. Just come to and engage in the conversation. That's all that matters. We'll talk about it anyway. But yes, Anna will be drinking tea. So till next time, join us on Caffeinated and Curious, Conversations con Sabor. I hope this one was tasty for you. And do not miss the next one.
We'll see you later.
Thank you.